Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Moxie Coaching Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I'll be your host as we explore what coaching is and how it can help you create your best life. If you're anything like me, it's important to you to give back in some way. Maybe it's volunteering in the soup kitchen. Maybe it's donating $1 million to environmental research. It doesn't really matter. I started coaching and podcasting because I'm just one person who can only do so much alone. And I realized that through coaching and through podcasting, I could help and support those of you who want to do good works and exponentially increase the amount of good that I'm able to do. So if this sounds like you, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Moxie Coaching Podcast. First of all, I want just to say a brief happy holidays to everyone who is celebrating at this time of year, regardless of what it is you're celebrating. I'm hoping that you're having the opportunity to get some quality time with your family and do some resting and some rejuvenating and some planning for what's coming up for you in 2022. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. All right. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what's upcoming in 2022, but primarily we're going to focus on what's upcoming in terms of the tarot for the podcast. In all of the previous episodes we've done thus far, from March until now, we've talked about the Major Arcana, and we've gone through all of the court cards. You've had the opportunity to learn the broad or the traditional interpretations of the cards, kind of what I call the foundational meaning of the cards. And you've had the opportunity to learn some specific questions to ask when those cards come up in a reading for you. And I've shared some of the archetypes that I attribute to these various court cards and major arcana cards. And so you now have a really good foundation for 2/3 of the tarot deck, essentially. And we're going to be launching into the Minor Arcana after the beginning of the year. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. Here's a little refresher for you on the Minor Arcana if you are new to tarot. The Minor Arcana is comprised of 40 cards. Each card is assigned a number and a suit. So each card is a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and either a suit, either a sword, a wand, a cup, or a pentacle. So that's where you get your 40 cards. You get 10 different swords, you get 10 different pentacles, 10 cups, and 10 wands. What we'll be doing is each week for 10 weeks, we'll be learning about one numeral in the Minor Arcana. So the first week we'll learn about the aces, the second week we'll learn about the 2s, 3s, 4s, and so forth. And part of the reason that I'm doing it for a couple reasons. Number one, because you already have some familiarity with the suits. We've talked about those quite a bit in relationship to the different cards. And an additional tool that you can use in your tarot journey is the tool of numerology. So that's what we're going to be sort of not focusing on the numerology. What am I trying to say? Basically, I want you to have an understanding of both the suit and the numerology behind the number of each of the Minor Arcana cards. And that's because when you have an understanding of both of those things, you can create your own sort of little, I don't know what you call it, bingo card of card meanings. So for example, if you know what the ones mean generally, or the aces, if you know what the aces generally mean, and you know what the pentacles generally mean, then when you pull the Ace of Pentacles, you're going to have at least some general context for what that card means, regardless of your understanding of or knowledge of the traditional meaning of the card. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the and we're dipping our toe in just barely into numerology here, but it is a good context for you, and it's a helpful way to remember and learn the traditional meanings of the cards. And like I said, the traditional meanings are, it's up to you if you would like to learn those. I personally think that they're important from the perspective of having a foundation on which everything else is built. So this is just one more tool that's designed to help you learn how to read the tarot, learn how to interpret things, and sort of, take it in your hands and mull it over and turn it around and look at it from all of the different angles. In addition to the numerology, we'll also be talking, of course, about those traditional meanings and any important symbolism in the cards, and some questions that you can ask yourself when you're self-coaching with these cards. We are not going to be including archetypes because the archetypes are really more geared toward the majors and the court cards. And I think that'll become more clear to you as we dig into the cards a little bit more deeply. Numerology, in a nutshell, is the study of how our moment of birth impacts who we are and how we are in life. Numerology is calculated on our birth date and our time of birth and our physical location of our birth. If you believe in numerology, you will recognize, or you will have the understanding, that these numbers have a specific or a special significance in your life. And numerology it's not completely new to me. I've been aware of it for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and read a few books and that type of thing. And I am by no stretch of the imagination an expert, but I have found it really interesting, and I've also found it really accurate when I look at my own personal birth information against what is out there in terms of numerology for me. So when I discovered that numerology was a part of the tarot, and it's a part of so many things that I never even really realized, but when I discovered that it was a part of the tarot, I was happy, because then I was able to sort of create this little system in my head as I was learning the cards that made it a tiny bit easier for me. And that's what I want to share with you today. I'll create a little cheat sheet for you and put it up in the show notes so you can use that as a point of reference when you are doing your own readings. We'll be focusing on the numbers 1 through 10, which represent in the tarot the aces through the 10s, because aces and 1s are the same in the tarot. We'll also be doing a little bit of a review on the suits, and I'll try to give you a few examples as well of how the process works. So let's get started. Review time. Cups. Cups are all about water and emotion and intuition and feeling and creativity. The element of water is represented by cups. Wands. Fire is representative of the wands. If you remember, they're all about action and movement and forward momentum. Fire is the same, right? It goes and it goes and it goes, and it's dynamic, and it can be a little bit out of control at times. Sometimes fire can be useful, but if it's not managed, it can be dangerous. Swords, if you remember, all about ideas and thoughts and plans, and the element represented is air. Swords are all about ideas, thoughts, plans, non-material, non-physical things, things that are ethereal, things that are in the air. And lastly, pentacles. Pentacles are all about the earth. They're about grounded things. They're about material things. They're about our health and our money and our bodies. Now let's talk about the numbers. The aces or the ones typically represent new beginnings. They represent creation and opportunity and potential. So just like we talked a little bit about the Fool's Journey in the Major Arcana, you can look at the Minor Arcana from a similar perspective. So aces are ones. They're the first number. They're all about beginnings. If we go to the other end of the spectrum and we look at the tens are all about completion and about the end of a cycle, about the beginning of something new. So there are two right there, two numbers that are pretty darn easy to remember. Ones, beginnings, tens, ends. Now twos are all about balance. And this is kind of an easy one to remember as well, because when you look at a lot of tarot cards out there, twos are shown in a way that represents balance, whether it's on a scale, whether it's someone juggling two things. Just think of juggling, right? Trying to keep the balance between two things. And it can also be about relationships and partnerships, because that's a relationship or a partnership between two people. It can also be about cooperation and duality. And it can also be about yin-yang, with this push-pull, this strong, gentle, opposite energy. Threes are about creativity and growth, and often threes are usually a pretty positive card. The Three of Cups is a group of three maidens celebrating, dancing in a circle, reveling in whatever it is they're reveling in. And let's see, the Three of Pentacles is a card that is also a good one. It's a little bit more about working creatively with other people. The fours, another one that's kind of easy to remember, are about structure and stability and manifestation. And I always think of that one when I think of the Four of Wands card in the Rider-Smith-Waite. And it's basically just four sticks that are in a square pattern. And it just, the square itself represents stability. And, you know, it's not like it's a triangle where it's leaning on the apex. It's this solid four-posted stable structure. Fours can also be about manifestation. They can be about stability. Fives are not quite as pleasant a card as the fours. Fives are usually a little bit edgier. They are often about instability. They're often about conflict or crisis or um, some type of difficult event that leads to transformation. Sixes are about communication, cooperation, harmony, spiritual balance. Are you noticing the pattern here? The odd numbers are the numbers that are more active and dynamic and less predictable. And the even numbers are more about that stability and kind of where I'd prefer to live my life personally. All right, the sevens are about reflection, assessment, knowledge, wisdom. The eights are about mastery, accomplishment, and action. The nines are about fruition, attainment, fulfillment, just being on the edge of something, just getting ready for something to happen, and then boom, we hit the tens and we're at the completion, the end of a cycle. So it's kind of this mini journey from the very beginning through learning how to balance things and learning how to be stable and manage shifts and changes and cooperation and disappointment and working hard and watching something come to fruition and then finally hitting the end of that cycle. Now, I want to warn you that if you're someone who, kind of like me, who really, really likes things to be literal, if at all possible, you're going to need to go with the flow on this one because, and we'll talk about the cards as we go through them, of course, but because there are some examples where this is like, bing, of course, that makes perfect sense, right? This little system of connecting the numbers to the suits. And then there are other areas where the connection is not as immediately visible. It doesn't mean that it's not there. It just means that it's not as kind of bonk you over the head, um, easy to see. Those examples are likely to be examples of cards that are a little bit more complex, cards that have more nuance. And again, it's just a learning process. But with this, you will have, like I said, another tool in your tarot toolbox to start doing some readings for yourself. Here is an example. So let's say you pull the Five of Pentacles. And you know that pentacles are about material things and money, health, the earthly realm. And you know that fives are about instability and conflict and can be about changes and shifts and crisis and generally kind of difficult things. Well, putting those two together essentially gives you the starting point for the traditional meaning of this card, which is all about being out, down and out kind of thing, about um, having access to help but not seeing it, not knowing how to access it, about financial difficulty. It can be about physical difficulty, about ailment. It can be about feeling separate or different from others. So that's a pretty decent example. The card itself is also another clue, just looking at the image. The image is of an older woman and a boy. The boy is on crutches. His feet are bound because he doesn't have shoes on. She has no shoes on and she's walking in the snow bent over. And behind her is a church wall and a church window. And in that window, in the stained glass, is 5 pentacles. So you can see that the card is reflecting the concept of the shifts and the instability and the crisis. And the card is also representing the physical manifestation of things through the pentacles. So it's just a really cool sort of combination, all of these different bits and pieces that are out there that you can pull from to gain a better understanding of the cards. And when I first started reading, I would see these pieces and I would see a little, maybe an article on numerology or a blog post on the suits or whatever. And it was all great information, but it wasn't, it took me a while to synthesize everything and to put it together and to see how the pieces fit together. And they fit together in a way really that can enrich your readings quite nicely. All right, let's do one more example, and then we'll do an example of one that is not such a good match. All right, but one that is a good match, the Nine of Wands. So we remember that nines are all about fulfillment, all about being on the precipice of something, all about fruition and attainment and just getting ready, almost like the Fool, just getting ready for something to change. Except that the Nine of Wands, remember, Wands is about action, and we have in the image, we have a man standing holding a wand, and behind him are 8 additional wands, and he has a bandage on his head, and he's looking extremely alert and concerned, and like he has just come through some kind of battle and has come out the other end triumphant, but not untouched. And he's cautiously optimistic, but he's a little bit wary. And this is perfect, right? This is we can tie it in together. Nines, fruition, attachment, fulfillment, being on the precipice. Wands, action, event, movement. So this guy's been through some kind of battle, and he has emerged successfully for now. And that's essentially what this card is about. Let's look at the Eight of Swords. So eights, we know, are about mastery and action and accomplishment, getting things done, forward momentum. And we know that swords are all about thoughts and ideas and plans and non-physical things. The broad traditional meaning of this card is really all about someone feeling trapped, but who actually has the tools to remove themselves from that situation if they will just recognize that they do indeed have the tools. They're not seeing their own capability. And so to me, personally, that is not a real tight connection. You know, mastery, accomplishment, thoughts and ideas. Now, I suppose you could look at it from the perspective of plans. Swords are about ideas, thoughts, and plans. And in the card, the person is trying to make a decision, right? The meaning of the card is this person is trying to make a decision. She's trying to make plans. So, yeah, I suppose there is a connection there, but it's not as clearly cut and clearly visible at least in my mind, as some of the others. Now, what's nice though is when you look at the Eight of Swords, in some ways the card itself, the image, again, thank you, Pamela Smith, the woman who did the illustrations for this, because she did make them very, or as literal, I think, as she could. And the image in this card is a woman standing with her arms bound, with a blindfold on. She's outside and she is surrounded by 8 very sharp looking swords. And the meaning of this card is essentially that she's trying to make a decision. She can't see which direction to go. She can't see, she can't decide. She's stuck, she's blind to the best choice. So, this card itself is a wonderful clue to the card meaning. So while this is a good tool to have, like I said, in your toolbox, it's not going to be the be all and the end all. It's not like the Garanimals for tarot where you pull the sword tag and then you pull the 5 tag and you put them together, and they're the perfect match. And if you don't know what Garanimals are, I'm just way too old. Look it up. Anyway, yes, that's it, I think. And I just wanted to give you a taste of what's to come and give you another tool that you can use to make this process easier and help you begin to really integrate working with the tarot in a way that's helpful, as opposed to just doing a reading and sitting there looking at the cards trying to figure out what the hell the book is trying to tell you. Next week we will be launching into the Aces, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'm looking forward to getting through all of the cards so we can start to really work on integrating this knowledge that you have, right? This great new tool and resource that you have for your self-coaching. So I'm sitting here rubbing my hands together, getting excited about it and thinking about future podcasts. And that's it for today. So thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate you and enjoy doing this podcast an awful lot. And teaching's just kind of in my blood. So while I'm not teaching outside anymore in the traditional sense, this gives me an opportunity to do that. And thank you for being a part of that. Have a great weekend and a happy new year, everyone. And I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.